Hello, everyone. Have a quick update for the situation between Israel and Hamas and Gaza. The Israeli army, the IDF, has made some advances, and there is some information out now about northern Israel and the threat of a confrontation with Hezbollah. And I'm going to segue from that into the possibility of a wider conflict in the region. And I think you're going to start to understand why it's important for me to keep reporting on this situation in addition to the situation in Ukraine. By the end of this, that should be pretty clear. So, first, starting with Israel and Gaza, when we last spoke, the Israelis had completed their salient that had gone all the way to the sea. So they had essentially cut Gaza from the rest of the Gaza Strip, the other two large settlements of Rafah and Khan Yunis. Now the Israeli military, the IDF, is looking at completely cutting off Gaza from the sea. So, not that I really don't think Gaza is receiving much support from the sea. I think the Israeli Navy can mitigate most of that, but if they were, they're certainly not now. The port of Gaza has now fallen into Ukrainian hands, as well as a pretty large buffer zone between the city center and the rest of the beaches. And real quick, we're going to zoom in here because there is something important to discuss. The Shifa Hospital, which is the largest hospital in Gaza, and is probably if not the largest still operating hospital in Gaza, is right up on the front line. The IDF is essentially besieging the hospital right now. This is going to start getting a lot of attention in the press, if not already. If you guys, any of you guys that look at the mainstream news, have probably seen some information about this hospital. The IDF is claiming that Hamas is operating through out of tunnels under the hospital, like they're using it as some kind of forward command position. In the meantime, there are over 600 patients in the hospital, and that's not including people taking shelter and refuge in the hospital. So, in terms of the humanitarian situation here, it's an absolute disaster. You have, one of the biggest operating hospitals in Gaza right up on the front line. There's fighting going on outside. There's actually some recordings of some doctors talking about the situation there, and they say that, there's smoke rising all around the hospital. Just basically all the buildings in the area off the campus have been bombed, and the campus itself has been hit several times. So, a lot of information going on there. It does appear like, looking at where the IDF is, they have already seized or are attempting to seize a number of hospitals. What the goal here is, I can only really speculate. It's probably that the IDF is trying to take these points under control themselves. That way they can, and do it as quickly as possible. That way they can get out of the news for these unfavorable stories of the IDF making war against hospitals can end if they occupy all the hospitals. Maybe, I don't know. That's the only thing I can think of. The only reason why I can think of, or perhaps maybe they're just in the way of the bigger goal. So as you can see here, the IDF has been expanding their zone of control on the northern coastal salient, and you can see a double envelopment here, a pincer forming, where essentially the northern and southern tips are eventually going to meet, and Gaza is going to be completely cut off from the sea. So, in addition to that, the IDF has expanded in other areas near Atatra and further to the north, which we can take a look at here as well. It's not actually. I mean, most of the fighting is going on the coastal regions, but the IDF has expanded somewhat more through the fields and through the city of Beit Hanun. All right, we're going to take a look at the overall situation. I'm just going to give it some help here. I have it set to move around pretty slowly. So, you could see the IDF closing in around Gaza from most directions. One direction we haven't necessarily seen yet is coming through the fields in the eastern parts of the Gaza Strip, which will probably happen once Beit Hanun has been completely captured, and the IDF can start moving into this area as well, start closing the noose around Gaza. They have also started to move south in the direction of the creek, but to my surprise, it doesn't seem like this has been a real high up on the IDF's list. I would have thought that the IDF would want to expand this salient. There is a bit of a threat here. I do imagine that there's a significant number of IDF troops holding open the throat of this salient here. But still, you're talking about a couple kilometers here. A pretty strong attack could sever that link. However, I am very skeptical that Hamas has the strength to actually do that. It seems to me that this is going to end up very much like the Battle of Mariupol, and just inside of a couple months, Gaza is going to be under IDF control. Now, that does bring us to, the purpose in all of this. The purpose for Hamas clearly wasn't some sort of military victory, right? I mean, there's some people that seem to believe that could be a possibility. I mean, I'm calling it, if it quacks like a duck, I'm calling it like it is. It's not a possibility. Hamas is not going to defeat the IDF, but that was not the purpose of the Hamas attack against Israel on October 7th. That killed a lot of Israelis. The purpose seems to be just to kick the beehive, really. So to get a heavy-handed reaction out of the Israeli government over that attack. So the Middle East has been a lot more peaceful until this happened at the beginning of October. A lot more peaceful than it has been in a long time. There were increasing protests among the Palestinians in the West Bank and in Gaza, but it was being largely ignored by the Muslim world, especially leadership like the national governments in the Muslim world. And Israel is actually looking to make some peace deals. Hamas launched the attack in order to get, to draw, it was basically bait, draw the Israelis in, and then create an immense hatred for Israel amongst the Muslim populations throughout the Middle East. And it seems like that has been achieved. So moving to the next point, there is significant risk of a wider conflict. And we're starting to see that in the north of Israel, on the borders of Lebanon. There have been some clashes, some artillery going back and forth between the IDF and Hezbollah, and now an evacuation order has been issued for Kiryat Shimona, which is this town right here. It's on the border. It's actually kind of sandwiched in between Lebanon and the Golan Heights, and there's a population there, 22,000 people, and a lot of the surrounding settlements have been given the same order. So there's tens of thousands of Israelis that have been forced to evacuate from the northern border there. That could be the sign of some larger conflict forming there. And Hezbollah, as many of you know, is actually a proxy militia of Iran, or I mean, it's technically a political party within Lebanon, but there's a big friendship between Hezbollah and Iran. Iran provides Hezbollah with a lot of weapons, a lot of training, a lot of munitions, and political support. Hezbollah is actually a Shia militant group, similar to Iran, and in contrast to Hamas, which is actually Sunni. So if Israel and Hezbollah go to war, Iran will probably go to war as well. And it's important to look at this situation in the context of the U.S. And I mean, we talk pretty openly on this channel about things like in terms of I like to speak of these things in the context of imagine this is a chess game. Imagine this is a chessboard. We're going to objectively speak of the facts here. If I was talking my personal politics and what I think, I would very much prefer if U.S. troops, my countrymen, our boys, were not in countries like Syria and Iraq. I wish we would have come home a long time ago, but the fact is we didn't. We're still there, so we're going to talk about their presence there in context of Iran and Israel. So I did an update a couple weeks ago on U.S. forces being attacked throughout the Middle East. Those attacks have continued, and these are basically the main bases that are being gone after again and again. There's several additional smaller bases as well, but these are the main ones. You have the main international airport in Baghdad, the large Al-Assad air base in the middle of the desert, a smaller air base up north, and a number of U.S. military bases in Syria guarding oil fields and stuff on behalf of the Kurds. Now, it's important to recognize here like what Iran's capabilities are going to be and how the U.S. position in the Middle East is a lot weaker than some people might expect, and this might be why some Republicans are calling for war with Iran. It seems like they're just trying to drum up support to get more troops deployed. And one of the reasons why is, there's probably in total less than 5,000 American troops spread out across these bases. And, that's probably including contractors. So I'm going to pull up a map here of the area. This was created in 2018 by The Economist, and this is the best map I can find that shows relative control of the area depending on like what militia. Of course, the blue here is the Iraqi security forces, which is going to be more so friendly to the U.S. Army because we put them in charge basically. But the orange is Shiite militias, so they're going to be far more favorable to Iran. And then the purple is just flat out Iranian militias. Like that's basically the Iranian military that has control, via proxy of those areas. So there's actually, unlike the previous Iraq-Iran war that happened in the late 70s, early 80s, I think, where it was a stalemate and there was big fighting on the border. Iraq was controlled by a secular government, basically a cult. And so like the Shia-Sunni split didn't really matter in Iraq. It was basically like nationalist Iraq versus Iran. And the war, it was basically, like the Ukraine-Russia war's been over the last couple months. It was basically a stalemate along the borders for several years, and a lot of people died. But in this situation, Iraq is very divided. Ethnicity and religion matter greatly where they didn't before. So Iran could virtually just waltz right into Iraq right now. And as you can see right outside of Baghdad and areas both to the north and south, the U.S. has significant number of assets at that Victoria air base in the middle of Baghdad. You can see probably Iran capturing the greater Baghdad area very rapidly. And this probably would be the first move in any kind of Iranian war in the region. So that all of a sudden, makes Iran's presence very notable. Now, that also means that the Al-Assad air base is much more important. Let's go ahead and bring back that. It's so hard to find this air base because it blends right in with the desert. So this airbase outside of Baghdad, wide open desert, a much more defensible place to hold back Iran. So if Hezbollah and Israel go to war, and if Iran does attack and moves into Iraq, I expect Iraqi security forces aren't going to put up very much of a fight at all. It's going to be up to the U.S. to halt the movement of Iran across the desert and into Syria. So that would happen. That would be done at the Al Assad Air Base. And it does have the capacity for large numbers of flights to move troops in. And this is probably the intended location of this American Quick Reaction Force that we heard about a couple weeks ago heading to the Middle East, something like 2,000 Marines. They're probably designated to go to this airbase anyways. But the issue is it's well within range of missile strikes from Iran itself. Iranian missiles have proven to be able to reach the ground in the area. So, whatever the Patriot missile system can shoot down, clearly it can't shoot down everything. So with an increased number of U.S. troops in the area, an increased number of equipment, there is an increased chance of, casualties on the American side. So it should be, hopefully it doesn't come to that. Hopefully that the Israelis and Hezbollah don't go to war. But if they do, and an all-out, all-out war breaks out here, it's hard to imagine Iran won't get involved. And just based on the number of U.S. troops in the region right now, we don't have boots on the ground that would be able to handle that right now. And in terms of these militias here, we're looking at somewhere definitely north of 50,000, probably north of 100,000 sets of boots and rifles that are probably going to declare for the Iranian side. And I would say that the Iraqi security forces aren't going to be much. They're going to be pushed aside rather easily. So if this war happens on the American side, there's going to be some rapid deployments, but it's mainly going to be the U.S. Navy and the U.S. Air Force fighting the war in the beginning. All right, guys, that's it for me on this one. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll see you next time.